So this is just going to be a quick demo on how you can end up setting up an environment to do development on AWS. And I find that this is helpful for people that maybe they're Windows users and they need to have a Linux environment. Maybe they're just having issues with their local environment. And I think this takes the stress off a little bit that you can just set up an environment online. I think the cost tends to be pretty minimal in terms of doing this. And again, you could investigate this a little bit. I ended up setting up an account with AWS. And once I end up doing that, the service that I'm going to use is Cloud9. So if you ended up just doing a search for Cloud9 AWS and you set up an account, you would find your way here pretty easily. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an environment. And I'm going to call this remote env. So here's my remote environment that I could work on. And I'm just going to go with all the defaults. So this is going to be a Linux environment. And I'm going to just click on next step. This is going to tell me how it's configuring this. And this will take maybe a minute or two to end up setting up. So that took a minute or so. And now I'm basically working on an environment that is remote. And I've got my file system here. I've got my console here. I'm going to be able to edit my files here. And really everything that you end up doing here, you can end up doing in this environment. Node is already installed here. We can see the version. This is something we can end up updating if we want to at some point. One issue is that I'm not going to have the database that I use, which is Postgres. And so if I end up typing PSQL, I'll see it doesn't exist. So this actually is a little bit of a setup to do. I've done this a few times. I'm going to end up going through this process. So one thing that I want you to realize here is that the user who you're logged in as is going to be a user with the name EC2 user. And so I just want you to realize that because we're going to have to go into a sudo mode, which is going to be a root user, make some changes, install Postgres, go into Postgres and do a couple of things here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to run a few commands as not the EC2 user, but as the root user. So if I do who am I now, I'll see I'm the root user. And the first thing that I'm going to end up doing is that I'm going to end up installing Postgres server. This is going to end up installing. I'm going to go with the defaults here. Okay. The next step that I'm going to end up taking here is I'm going to initialize Postgres. Sorry, wrong line. It's going to initialize the database. That only has to be done once. And I'm going to start the service so I could go into it. So the next thing that I'm going to end up doing is that I need to go into Postgres, but I need to go in with the right privileges. So I need to go in as the Postgres user, and I'm going to need this sudo command to do it. And since I'm going to be using the database as the EC2 user, I need to create the user, and Postgres actually needs a database with the same name as the user. So there's going to be 3 commands that I'm going to have to do here. So now I'm logging in here as the Postgres user. So now I'm in Postgres. And now I'm going to end up creating the user. And we have to do the quotes here because the dash is not recognized. So I have to be a little bit more specific by putting that in quotes. That's going to end up creating that user. And now I need to create a database for this user. And now when that's done, I could end up quitting out of Postgres. And the next thing that I want to do, so notice that I'm still the root user, so I still have privileges here. I need to edit this file. So however you decide to edit it, you could go and open up the file. I'm going to use Vim. If you're not comfortable with Vim, you could go find the file in your environment if you want. So Let's go over here. And so this file, there's really only one thing that I have to change here. So I'm going to go and search for ident. And when I end up logging into the database, I need to basically have this trust the user. So just this one line over here. And I'm going to get out of here again, however you decide to end up updating this. And at this point, the only other thing I need to do here is I need to restart Postgres. So it'll end up restarting the service. And now, again, I want to do the sort of normal thing. I don't want to be here as a sudo user. I'm just going to exit out of this. So now I'm back to my EC2 user. Now I'm going to go into Postgres. And just to see that this works, I'm going to end up creating a database, foobar. I could connect to it, foobar. And at this point, I could, create a node application or whatever application that I want to end up creating, and I can end up interacting with Postgres. And that's really about it.